This is Steve Laffey's Fixing America. And now, broadcasting live from the Fixing America Command Center in Fort Collins, Colorado, here is your host, Steve Laffey.
Good afternoon, America. Steve Laffey here. Steve Laffey's Fixing America. It's great to be with you today. It's a fine day out there, and it's Newsday Tuesday. So we're Steve Laffey at Steve Laffey's Fixing America. If you've tuned in for the first time, we're at LaffeyRadio.com, and we're broadcasting a very different kind of show most every day here from Fort Collins, Colorado. See, our philosophy is that when you pick up the media today, all you really hear about is one side attacking the other side. And that's how people make a living. Make a very good living in Washington, D.C., in politics, lobbying, attacking, the other guy's terrible. And you make a very good living doing a radio show, TV shows, just hammer on one topic. You're on one side, they're on the other side, and we're going to go get them today. That's not really what we're doing here. You can follow us on Facebook, Laffey Radio. You can like us on Facebook. I always say it backwards, by the way. I don't know why. But you can do whatever you want on Facebook. Just comment on Facebook. There are thousands of people now gravitating to Facebook, and we put these shows up in the air after they're over, so you can just go to your phone and play them on the way home, and it becomes a self-loading app. So anyway, the last couple of months we've been putting up these shows. We do this Laffey Minute. We do it every day. Today we're going to talk about baseball a little bit today, and we did one on Alex Rodriguez, but we generally do them on the most serious topics of our time. And check out the Fixing America Presents as we get going here, and pass them along to your friends. Tell your friends about what we're doing here, because America doesn't have much time. And so, I just stopped my life again to do this, to try to get this stuff out to you about the importance of what's going on in America, so we the people, can organize and take on this established, entrenched, corrupt government and defeat them eventually and bring more freedom to people. And especially, we see more people joining us over this sort of one issue, especially about the fact that the kids, the younger generation of America, have really no future with the debt that we've laid on them, the lack of a foreign policy, what's going on in communist China, and on and on. And so anyway, today we could talk about a lot of topics. I thought we'd start. Actually, I thought I'd tell you a little bit about yesterday. I made a phone call, and before I even go to these topics, America is a great place. I get on the phone all the time because I need stuff. I need fence stuff. I check into... Well, I'm one of those guys, I just call people on the phone and see if they got a car I might need. And almost all the time, you know this stuff where you hear about on Craigslist. I've dealt on Craigslist. Nothing but the top-notch guys selling my hay to people that I never met before. I have a cadre of small ranchers around here who buy some of the hay that I sell. Every one of them. Great. Talked to a husband and a wife yesterday about a potential purchase of a RV and up in Iowa. And just ended up having a nice conversation with them about stuff that we were doing. Couldn't have been nicer people. Just immediate sense of trust. The vast majority of Americans are like that. They're not like what we see in the newspaper because they only cover the bad stuff. But leading into what I want to talk about first is that just before I came on the air, I was just glancing around the news, and it was just reported again that Heritage Foundation, a nice group out of California, They do a study every year on each country's freedom index. And they look at things like, obviously our laws in each country, the debt in each country. They probably call it they do call it the fiscal soundness. They look at property rights. America should be number one. It just slipped out of the top 10 for the first time in maybe ever, but certainly a long period of time. That should concern people. We should not always wake up and find that the disaster is staring us in the face. And there it is, disaster, and we knew about it. We are edging down in freedom, which means we will edge down in economic growth, and we'll edge up in corruption. And those things go together, by the way. You look at a country that has very little freedom and has massive corruption. How else will people make a living? You can't make it by the interaction with another human being on buying and selling goods that will benefit both, so you have a win-win situation. You make it by handing out your hand when you're in Cuba. If there's some tourist saying you can't go any farther, I might arrest you, give me $20. By the way, Cuba's 177 and North Korea's 178, and that's the bottom. I guess there's some countries like Afghanistan and Syria they don't even measure because, well, how can they really measure Syria today, right? After what has happened in the last, call it 15 years, but especially the last year. So what happens is more corruption. And I want to tell you, it's not just that. You can take the statistic, and then you can take a look at any of the things that are going on in America. Last week on Newsday Tuesday, I was talking to you about the disaster of what happened in New York City with the arrest of over 100, I forget how many it was, 100 police and firemen from 9/11 who declared themselves disabled. Got crooked people to train them how to file out the forms that due to 9/11 in New York, that they were permanently disabled. And then they've had pictures of them fishing and so forth. I told you I've dealt that a lot of that goes on. Well, later on last week, and it gets to this issue of corruption, Wall Street Journal ran a big article, op-ed, called Grand Theft Disability. And we've talked about this a little here. But people moving toward taking Social Security disability, which, by the way, years ago was extremely hard to get into. I'm not saying you had to be a quadriplegic, but you had to be totally disabled to be eligible for Social Security disability, which we all pay into, not all of us, about 90% of us, pay into over the course of our lives. The massive amount of corruption in that, because under the last president, under this president, there really seem to be almost no safeguards. And I'll give you some statistics. It can't be possible. You wonder why people are leaving the workforce when where some of them are going? The number of Americans receiving Social Security disability payments has gone from 6 million to 9 million. I mean, and they cite specific judges who approve 99% of the cases. And then they cite lawyers who set up firms just to scam, just to put out ads, get attractive young women to recruit applicants. They hire doctors with records of falsifying medical opinions, and they get them to go in front of a certain judge who's going to approve every case, and they take their cut. Billions and billions. There's one judge in in West Virginia who's approved a lifetime awards, if they will all be continued, of $2.5 billion. And that gets at, these things go together. It's not 100% correlation. But as economic freedom declines, corruption will grow. And we're going to continue to have lack of economic growth as our freedom declines. And that's why our basis is we've got to be for more freedom. And what ends up happening, too, in countries like that is that they end up usually getting more income inequality. Now, under the last 4 years of this president, under the theory of, by the way, perpetrated back from 1980s with Alan Greenspan, under the theory that we're going to operate, that we're going to increase the wealth effect, make the wealthiest people more wealthy, so it will trickle down to regular folks, I suppose. But that's the Fed's opinion, the Federal Reserve's opinion. Under that scenario, I'm really talking about our third topic, these all are related. We are seeing a massive increase in income inequality in our country. Many reasons we can talk about, but some of them come into play. 1% reaped 90% of the income gain since Obama took office. This is the Washington Times. Since Obama took office. So here's a man who talked about we got to stop this income inequality. And through blessing the Fed, Bernanke, calling him a hero, allowing this stuff to happen, that's probably one of the biggest reasons. But there are other reasons. And this gets at, we're going to something to talk about in the last segment too. But another article came out that I wanted to bring up to your attention by Ari Fleischer, who used to work in the Bush administration. But he cites a lot of statistics about income inequality and how that income inequality comes a great deal from the fact that people aren't married. People aren't married and have children. And the stark reality is this. We should always encourage people to get out of school, before they have children, get married, stay married, and we will take a lot of people out of poverty. That by itself will help income inequality. Won't be the only thing that would help it. And no one mentions the major thing that would help it right now, I think. But let me give you some statistics on that. Families headed by married couples, the poverty level is 7.5%. And of course, that's before, they always talk about the poverty level, but they always talk about it before they include earned income tax credits, food stamps, so forth. And we've talked on the show many times about all these programs that through this last 4 or 5 years that should have not have increased during economic recovery, but have. Last Friday, for example, when the unemployment rate came out, the big statistic was that even more people than we talked about last week are leaving the workforce. They're just disappearing. Some are going on Social Security disability, it looks like, but they're just leaving the workforce. There's no hope for them. They don't have any hope. So if you've got a married couple, the poverty level in 2012 was 7.5%. A single mother, 33.9%, 34%. Not 7.5, 12. Not 7.5, double to 15. 7.5, 34. It'll make you cry. And we're doing nothing in this society, basically, to encourage people, because people will just, they make fun of you. People should live their own lifestyle, do what they want, and so forth. Sure. But the poverty level of single mothers, and by the way, they split it out, whether you're white or black or so forth, Hispanic. Here's one. The number of children raised in female-based-headed families is growing throughout America. In 2012, 28% of children born to a white mother were out of wedlock. For Hispanics, it's 52%. For African Americans, it's 72%. Dooming most of them to a life of poverty. And so it's perfectly okay to say, whether you're running for office, in office, hosting a radio show, that it would be better, all things equal. Get out of high school, go to college if you want to, if you're supposed to, whatever. We've had shows on that. Not everybody should be going to college. Get married, then have children. But almost none of our leaders talk about that. Almost none of the TV shows that you could watch in the evening reflect that. And I've told you before, my kids don't watch any of these shows. I don't even know what they are. I was actually flipping channels at some new shows that came on. I was going to go to the news, and I said, what is this? What is this? I don't know. They didn't reflect what I would call core values, traditional values, whatever you want to call them. Heritage reports that among white married couples, the poverty rate was 3.2%. Non-white, non-married families, the rate was 22%. So among white people, among black married couples, the poverty rate was 7%, non-married, 35.6%. And then you pay attention to the article. Oh, we're going to go up. Gosh, time's already flying. And what are they missing about the article? I mean, all these people talk about income inequality, and here's one way to get it back. They never speak about the jobs that have been lost to communist China. They never speak about this devastation that's going on. Well, people can't be retrained. Can't be retrained. People I was speaking about possibly buying an RV, they worked for an American-made RV company and make it right there in Iowa. And that's one thing I guess is pretty hard. It's pretty hard to make one of those in another country. But that's one of the things that would bring back income equality and bring back jobs. It wouldn't solve the whole problem. Wouldn't solve maybe most of the problem. It'd solve make a big dent in that ditch where people are suffering so badly in this country with no hope. And they look up at their government and their corrupt government and the corrupt lobbyists, and they simply don't know what to do. And that's where we stand in America today. We're going to take a quick break here. LaffeyRadio.com. Steve Laffey, broadcasting every day, right here from Fort Collins. 1080p if you want to watch it. Just listen to it in your car. Listen to the shows we put up in the air. We'll take a quick break. We'll be right back to talk about the state of New Jersey.
Stay tuned. Steve Laffey's Fixing America returns after these commercial messages.
Picture this, your next trip, Utah, 5 national parks. First, Zion. You're walking, the ground rises, the ground drops, the ground becomes water. Next, Bryce. You're riding a mule. You're riding a mule under giant orange drip castles. You are not dreaming. You will not forget this. On to Capitol Reef. Take the scenic route, the really scenic route. Take a path you've never taken and see the stars for the first time. Now for Canyonlands. You're riding a bike. You're riding a bike on Mars. Now you're riding the rapids. Class 2, Class 3, Class 4, Classic. Arches, 5:32 a.m. Some things are worth racing the sunrise for. The horizon lightens. You round the corner. Whoa. This is Life Elevated. The Mighty Five. 5 iconic parks, 1 epic experience. Plan your trip at visitutah.com.
I'm always up for a challenge. It's the feeling of accomplishment that drives me. And there's no better challenge than serving part-time in the Coast Guard Reserve. I protect my country, work with the best and brightest. I get great pay and benefits in return. The Coast Guard Reserve is important work. I get to serve my community, and it's always rewarding.
If you were born ready, there's a new challenge waiting for you. Learn about serving part-time at gocoastguard.com/reserve.
This is Nnamdi Asamoah. I play football for the Philadelphia Eagles, but what I do off the field with United Way might be more important. I'm a volunteer tutor and mentor. Why? Because over 1 million kids a year drop out of school, and that's not okay. It takes 12 years to create a graduate, but it takes about the same time to create a dropout. And the difference between a child becoming one or the other could be me, or it could be you. Studies show that if we get to these kids earlier, their chances are better. And kids who read well by 3rd grade are more likely to graduate. So join me in United Way. Suit up and take the pledge. Become a volunteer reader, tutor, or mentor. Because when a child succeeds, we all succeed. Give, advocate, volunteer, live united. Take the pledge at unitedway.org. Brought to you by United Way, the Ad Council, and the National Football League.
And now, back to the Fixing America radio program with your host, Steve Laffey.
This isn't the Chris Christie many of us expected to see. Humble, apologetic.
I am not a bully.
And yet it's that Jersey tough guy style which launched him to political stardom.
Are you stupid? On topic. Next question. Good. Thank you all very much, and I'm sorry for the idiot over there.
It's none of your business. I don't ask you where you send your kids to school. Don't bother me about where I send mine.
And you know what? Let me tell you this. You know what? It's people who raise their voices and yell and scream like you that are dividing this country. We're here to bring this country together, not to divide it.
Steve Laffey here. Steve Laffey's Fixing America. Thanks for tuning in to us. We're here in Fort Collins, Colorado, broadcasting to the world in 1080p, in radio, in TV, LaffeyRadio.com. That was Governor Chris Christie. The news, and I really don't even want to talk about any of the other stuff that's going on in New Jersey. We can analyze it. Everybody does that. And again, one channel this morning, as I was up really early, we're in Mountain Time, was analyzing it in a way that they were going to spend the whole day on it, as if there was nothing going on in Ukraine. As there was nothing going on with the new budget. There was nothing going on with unemployment. There was nothing going on with poverty. Just something going on in New Jersey. And granted, so we can talk a little about that, but that's not my interest. My interest, and what I want to get across to you, it's just unfathomable how bad New Jersey is doing and how bad it's done over the last 5 years. Why can't there be 100 press people who are interested in the fiscal nature? How are the bridges doing in New Jersey? How's the infrastructure? What's the debt level? What have the decisions been made for fiscal soundness? What's the bond rating done? You almost you never hear the stuff. It becomes now a soundbite. And listen, by the way, there was something on that clip before we go any farther. If you listen closely to that clip, and it irritates the living heck out of me. There's a clip where Christie is Governor Christie. There's nothing against Governor Christie, by the way, except he has no, and he's admitted. And I've written an op-ed piece about it. Should have brought it down here, but I've written he has no philosophy. He's just, let's win because I can win. And my philosophy is I'm going to get Democrats to vote for me and show I can run up the score in a New Jersey election because I'm going to schedule it when this other guy, Booker, is not going to be on the ballot because he's a popular Democrat and he's going to be a U.S. Senator. I'm not concerned about saving the state any money at all. I'll spend millions more, is what he's told people. I'll spend millions more just to have a special election so I can run up the score. And then I'll go out and get all these Democrats to endorse me. Here's the lesson of that. You're not going to get Democrats to endorse you in New Jersey or Rhode Island, where I'm from, in mass, unless you just give away the store. And that's what he must have done. Obviously, he must have done. If he was actually doing some fiscal soundness, toughness, and getting things done in New Jersey, where that place is a basket case economically. Ever been there? How's Trenton doing? I mean, we'll go through this, but there was a part where he talked about, and he was, I don't know if he's bullying or what the term is, but don't ask me about my kids go to school, and I want to ask you about your kids going to school. Total removal. This is what happens all the time because I'm even going to look it up. I don't care. I just care about his philosophy. It was nothing for me to say when I was an elected official or running for the U.S. Senate, and I said this during a debate about school choice and how my opponent sent his kids to the finest schools because he was very wealthy, but kids didn't get school choice. They didn't get vouchers. And the same thing came, don't talk to me about my kids. I didn't care. His kids, by the way, were very nice little kids and delightful kids. I mean, talked to him before the debate. Senator Chafee's kids. I hope they turned out okay, but they were at the time. And my kids were delightful kids, but I thought it was important to get across to people my philosophy. We didn't need to follow my kids, although people did follow my kids into the vote when we came to vote. They get to hear all insults being yelled at them. That's fine. They get over that. But that part is a part that you should listen to. That little part about education is like, don't look at me, what I'm doing. Don't look at my philosophy of education. I won't talk about your kids. We should talk about, in general terms, about what people's philosophy is. Mine is, get your kids out of the public schools. After all the stuff I've done and all the experiments I've done, not experiments, but trials and tribulations of kids in different school systems, Governor Christie is one of the old-time guys. Don't talk to me about that. I won't talk to you about your kids. I'm guessing he doesn't have his kids in the public schools. I don't know, which is fine, by the way. He doesn't have to. I mean, Catholic schools, he's a Roman Catholic, I guess. And he was very happy the other day. He's got his kid in Notre Dame. That's great. Applaud him for that. And I'm sure he's done some really good things. But back to what it should be about. It shouldn't be about, let's play some clips here. It shouldn't be about just blind faith of the Republican Party. Here's Mr. Priebus, who runs the Republican National Party. They got the clock cleaned. And only in a couple of places, like where I'm from in a national party, do people not resign after they get their clock cleaned in elections. They stick around for the next election. Here he is.
Speaking, he says, who has known Christie since the current governor was a teenager, faulted Christie for establishing a culture in his tight inner circle in which no one will ever say no to him, and that is dangerous. He also said that Christie's approach to governing is overly aggressive and his agenda is personal. Is this a leadership problem for the governor?
No, I don't. In fact, I think what you saw the other day was leadership, was something that showed that, look, everyone is fallible, David. I'm fallible, you are, everyone on these panels, we all make mistakes. But the real question is, what do you do when mistakes happen? There's no question. He admitted mistakes happen. He admitted he trusted people that lied to him. America's a forgiving people. But they're forgiving when you take ownership, you admit mistakes, you take corrective action, and that's what Chris Christie showed. He stood there for 111 minutes in an open dialogue with the press. Now, only if Barack Obama and Hillary Clinton would give us 111 seconds of that would we find out some things we want to find out about Obamacare, Benghazi, the IRS. I mean, Chris Christie's been totally
Let me pick up on
here.
that point, Chairman. So you have...
That's the chairman of the National Republican Party. I'm not saying that Chris Christie didn't do a good job in his press conference and so forth. Most everybody would stand up and just ask, standard political things, stand there and ask every question until everybody leaves. Fine. Apologize, fire some people, whatever you got to do. The biggest thing that Chris Christie is popular for in New Jersey, which ought to concern the head of the National Republican Party, but he's only concerned about power. He's just concerned about being in power and getting people in power. And if Chris Christie is the best guy to get power back to the Republican Party, he's all for that. Doesn't matter that he doesn't have any, that Chris Christie really doesn't espouse any philosophy that you would think. about how things should be done, about limited government. Doesn't really espouse that. He just espouses he can get along with Democrats, and he's best known for embracing the President of the United States during the Sandy hurricane failure, and then screaming that this state needs $61 billion. And meanwhile, going around the state cutting commercials. I mean, this is all going to come out. I mean, how do you go to the high bidder when you put out a commercial that's promoting you running around the state, and you're trying to get $61 billion out of that family I talked to yesterday in Iowa to send it to New Jersey? I mean, that stuff has to come to a halt, where people who live close by the ocean have to have the right insurance. It cannot be poor people funding Florida wealthy people in Miami's hurricane victims in the next 20 years. There has to be some meeting that we have to have with the American people and say, we're willing to help. And by the way, I have a whole idea about that. But let's get back to Chris, how the federal government would really do this in a way that's cost-effective using the private sector. But Chris Christie's problem is simply this. If I'm the reporter, I want to know why it's one of the low. New Jersey had the bond rating lowered last year and has one of the lowest bond ratings in all of America. I got it right here. 50 states, 50 bond ratings. You could be AAA like Iowa, or you could be AA minus like New Jersey and Kentucky. That's one of the lowest ratings. The other one, only thing lower than New Jersey that I can find here is California. That makes some sense. In California. Oh, in Connecticut. They have single A's, looking at the bond ratings of S&P, bond ratings. How do you run for high office when the bond rating in your state goes down? Best and worst run states in America. This is done by 24/7 Wall Street, independent group, came out last year. Best run states. They look at debt. They look at his best run states: North Dakota, Nebraska, Utah. Worst run states: Rhode Island, of course. New Jersey. Debt per capita, 5th highest. Budget deficit, 4th largest. Unemployment, 14th highest. Percentage below the poverty line, 3rd lowest. Add it all up. The state's tax burden is the 2nd highest in the U.S. New Jersey's debt as a percentage of revenue was the 5th highest of all states. Okay, now we're getting somewhere. But then it gets worse. Here's what it really gets at. The fiscal soundness of New Jersey is a disaster. Governor Christie, and someone needs to ask him, why do you do all these one-time fixes? He says, here's an article, he says he restored fiscal sanity. But he didn't. I mean, it's on and on. Here, I'll just go through one after the other. You don't need to hear all this. In this article that came out, this is October of 2013. Last 2 years, he took $175 million from the money paid to states to settle complaints of mortgage fraud intended to help homeowners prevent foreclosure. Just took it out and put it in the budget. Last year, took $166 million that towns were supposed to send to build affordable housing, put it in the general. Made an accounting switch. Instead of setting up property rebates in May, he sends them out in August. He pushes $400 million into the next fiscal year. That should make people upset. That is what really bad fiscal managers and governors and the people I had to deal with before, that's what they do. That's what they do. Nobody trying to become, no governor should do this. He takes funds out of funds that were dedicated to energy efficiency. $700 million, takes them out. It goes on and on. He drained money intended to fix the state's aging roads and bridges. It's terrible infrastructure, one of the worst infrastructures of all time. It goes on and on. And by the way, issued more bonds to get the debt up to pay for some of this stuff. 2011, while he's governor, they downgrade the state's bond rating. It goes on. So the fiscal soundness of New Jersey is terrible, and that's what we should focus on. And that's what Governor Christie should go back and focus on, getting the fiscal soundness of New Jersey back up and really working with, if that's possible, or slamming home, or whatever has to be done, and use his bullying tactics as he has for the betterment of New Jersey to rise to be 25th in any of these rankings, because it's not. The infrastructure of New Jersey is terrible. But that's not what everybody's going to focus on. They're going to focus on all this other stuff, which, by the way, they can focus on. It's fine. It's a regional thing and so forth. But the real focus has to be this budget. And it always has to be about the budgets and the pensions, because it's all about the kids. Anyway, we'll take a quick break. Steve Laffey, Newsday Tuesday, Laffey Radio on Fixing America. We'll take a quick break, talk a little about baseball, see if we can connect the two.
Stay tuned. Steve Laffey's Fixing America returns after these commercial messages.
I am an American soldier.
I'm a warrior and a member of a team.
I serve the people of the United States and live the Army values.
I will always place this first.
I will never accept defeat.
I will never accept defeat.
I will never quit.
I will never leave a fallen comrade.
I am disciplined.
I am disciplined.
Physically and mentally tough.
Trained and proficient in my warrior tasks and drills.
I always maintain my arms, my equipment, and myself.
I am an expert and I am a professional.
I stand ready to deploy, engage, and destroy the
enemies of the United States of America in close combat.
I am a guardian of freedom and the American way of life.
I am an American soldier.
I am an American soldier.
I am an American soldier.
There's strong, and there's Army Strong. See what it takes at GoArmy.com.
Well, I finally did it. I opened a 401k.
What? Why? Just wait for the inheritance. We've definitely got a rich uncle somewhere. We're one call away from the winner's circle at the Derby, dinners with multiple forks, a vacation home in the country, using summer as a verb.
You don't actually think that, do you?
When it comes to financial stability, don't get left behind. Get tools and tips for saving at feedthepig.org. This message brought to you by the American Institute of CPAs, the Rhode Island Society of CPAs, and the Ad Council.
When I have an asthma attack, I feel scared.
It's like tiny nails in the air poke my lungs.
I start to cough. Sometimes my parents have to take me to the hospital.
Today, 1 out of 13 children suffer from some form of asthma, accounting for nearly 1/3 of all emergency room visits.
I feel like I'm choking. It's kind of like an elephant is on my chest. A little whistle sound comes out when I breathe.
But while your child may suffer from asthma doesn't have to make your child suffer. There are simple ways you can prevent your child's next attack. To learn more, log on to www.noattacks.org or call your doctor, because even one attack is one too many.
I feel like a fish with no water.
Brought to you by the EPA, the Ad Council, and this station.
And now, back to the Fixing America radio program with your host, Steve Laffey.
Yankee slugger Alex Rodriguez plans to continue fighting his suspension even after it was reduced by an arbitrator. A-Rod's lawyers are challenging the ruling in federal court.
It is very difficult to overturn arbitration decisions in court. The Supreme Court for the last 50 years has said courts may not consider the merits of the case. So for him to get it reversed, he's going to have to prove that the arbitrator was corrupt or the process was flawed.
The suspension was originally 211 games for his alleged association with Biogenesis, which is accused of supplying banned substances to several major leaguers. Over the weekend, that suspension was reduced to 162 games, which would be the entire 2014 season. He would also be suspended for the playoffs if the Yankees get there.
Steve Laffey, welcome back. It's Newsday Tuesday here on LaffeyRadio.com. Steve Laffey's Fixing America. And we're going to talk a little about baseball, which I normally don't do, but I just thought that today would be a good day to actually bring up and try to connect what's happening here in America as people become, unfortunately, more disconnected and more like, well, that's just the way it's done. And you see what happened to Alex Rodriguez. You look back, by the way, it's like Lance Armstrong. And this attitude of just complete denial, not over like something small, but just his whole career over and over and over again, which proved to be such a terrible strategy. Instead of just saying, yeah, I did it, I'm sorry. Here we have Alex Rodriguez, who year after year, all this year, is still denying, even though the evidence against him is so overwhelming. He's still in denial over using these performance steroids. But it's really worse than that. It's not just about him. It's about the attitude of us. You know, I grew up a Yankee fan, and that was not unusual. People think I'm from Rhode Island. It's not unusual, especially in the Cranston section although I was Irish, but the Italian section growing up on the other side. Cranston sort of split Reservoir Avenue. There was more Irish people on one side. I grew up on that side, more Italian people on the other side. And on that side, you were basically a Yankee fan. So I don't know how I really became a Yankee fan, even though the Red Sox were a little bit closer. It had to do with probably reading books and so forth. But so I've always been a Yankee fan. But I've kind of come to this decision. I don't know if you've come to this decision. I've come to the decision that I'm sort of done with this. And I know that's maybe I played baseball growing up. Loved to play baseball. You know, go down to the baseball fields all as a young kid. Was a decent baseball player till my eyesight started to go bad, and then I stopped playing and did other stuff. But it's a combination of all the things they're doing. And the remarkable lack of respect for the game that Major League Baseball has. It's really about corporations. The ticket prices are too high. And when you get players like this, and the attitude among people that even to let that you vote, someone even still votes for these people who use all these steroids. The attitude is worse. Let me play a couple of clips here. This is because I won't get to them otherwise. Here is Tony Bosch, who I guess provided all this stuff, illegal drugs for Alex Rodriguez.
Once Alex Rodriguez was fully into your protocol, what were the various banned substances that he was taking?
Testosterone, insulin growth factor, 1, human growth hormone, and some different forms of peptides.
All of them banned?
All of them banned.
And he knew that?
Yes, he did.
And you knew that?
And I knew that.
Was Rodriguez injecting himself with these substances?
Alex is scared of needles. So at times he would ask me to inject.
You've injected him?
Yes.
Personally?
And so all this is about sports in general. And the attitude that it's perfectly okay just to do this because everybody else is doing it is not something we tell our kids. People are cheating in the school classroom. It's not okay for you to do it. We've seen, I mean, this is like the old time America, right? Until recently. Where, listen to, let's play one more longer clip of Mr. Bosch. I guess everybody's doing it, and it's okay.
And you know the truth about the testing and the flaws was almost a cakewalk, actually.
A cakewalk?
Yeah.
To beat the system?
To beat the system.
To cheat?
To cheat.
But did you ever think about the integrity of the game?
No, I never did. I didn't know. I love the game of baseball.
How can you love the game of baseball and do this to?
Because unfortunately, this is part of baseball. This is part of baseball. When you ask these guys to play 100+ games back to back, jump on a plane, get off a plane, all these road trips, their bodies break down. This has always been part of the game. Always been part of the game. And so their nutrition it's extremely important.
But come on, Tony, we're not talking about nutrition and massage therapy and all those sorts of things. We're talking about drugs that are banned, that are illegal in the sport. They knew what they were doing. You knew what you were doing, and it cuts to the heart of fair play.
What is fair play? Let me ask you that question. How about this? Follow me in thought. Here I am. I'm Alex. And I'm at the plate, and I know that the guy is throwing the 95-mile-per-hour pitch. Sports performance-enhancing drugs. The guy who's going to catch the ball is on a program. The guy that I have to tag at third from a throw from center field when he's sliding, he's on it. Fair play? Fair play. If everybody's on it, wouldn't that be fair play?
And that's it. That's an attitude that is far too prevalent. That's Tony Bosch talking about giving drugs and his thoughts on the integrity of the game. He had no thoughts about the integrity of the game. He loved baseball, and he's asking the question that Lance Armstrong, I'm sure, asked. and the people who injected him and these other Major League Baseball players. By the way, he makes a very good point. Bodies do break down. There's no way these people can ever get to break Hank Aaron's record. Nobody probably can. Given the travel schedules today, the night baseball games, the kind of travel that they do. Of course, years ago, they got on trains. Years ago, Mickey Mantle was just sucking down brew after the game, as far as I know. I don't know if we've ever charged Mickey Mantle with the performance-enhancing steroids. But everybody's got to have a leg up on each other. And that's just not the way it should be. But in America today, people are going to be going to these games next year. I'm not sure I'm going to go. I might go down. I mean, it is nice to go down. Baseball is a nice game to actually go to, and it's terrible to watch on TV. They make them too long. Football game, I don't think you could ever get me to. But I watch a little bit on TV. I watch a very little bit after reading about all the concussions that people are still ignoring in football. Maybe I shouldn't watch any of it, but I still do enjoy it because it's such a skilled game. There's nothing more skilled than a guy catching a football these days. These guys put out a hand. It's unbelievable. But this is just the thought process. This is going to continue all the time. That Major League Baseball is going to continue down this road. I said it in a Laffey minute. It's sort of like their version of the Kmart special. I don't think they realize that they're setting the seeds of their own destruction in baseball over the next 20 years. It won't happen all one day. But there aren't kids playing baseball. There aren't the young kids coming through saying, I got to watch baseball. They couldn't watch it growing up like I could. The World Series are on way too late. Games take way too long. Kids aren't doing it. And so now it's a corporate game. You know, the tickets are so expensive. Maybe not the Kansas City Royals, but any of the teams that are half decent, they're so expensive. It's incredibly expensive. Anyway, maybe that's enough about baseball. I just thought we'd bring it out and not try to connect it to what's happening, but the way the press handles these things. It had to be pretty obvious. I mean, all the time, going back to Barry Bonds, when your head size grows after a certain age, you're on steroids or you have cancer or something. I mean, there's only really one reason that your head grows. You're taking steroids, not when you're a kid, obviously, but when you're 25 years old. So between that and what's going on here, let's go. By the way, one other thing that happened I want to get back to before this next break, just quickly, and it's something that's, I think, very important. It goes along with what we just heard from Chris Christie's the talk about that. The American public, the new Gallup poll that came out, 4 out of 10 Americans are now self-identifying, this is just a recent poll, as independents. That trend continues to go up. And people identifying as Republicans and Democrats continues to go down. But for Republicans, it's even down faster. It's down to like 24% versus 30%, which is flatline for Democrats. And the people who run the party have nowhere to look but themselves. They are destroying the party. In fact, the candidates, the major people in the party, is trying to rebrand themselves over issues when they don't have to do that. But they don't understand. They don't understand what's going on in the Republican Party. I've seen it. I've seen it when they attacked me. I saw the really beginning of the end when they would go after someone like me. And it wasn't just me. It just was the philosophical reasons. The fact that there weren't really any philosophical reasons. It was about pure power. And power of a principle only goes so far, unless you really got guns and you're in Cuba. Then power of a principle can go as long as you can keep the guns, like in North Korea. Anyway, Steve Laffey's Fixing America. We're covering a bunch of topics. I want to get to, we'll take a little bit longer segment. We'll take an earlier break right now. I want to get to China, and I want to get to Iran before the end of the day. There's some important happenings there that you just need to know about. These trends that are almost terrifying. And we as Americans, our elected officials won't wake up about it. We have to. Steve Laffey's Fixing America at LaffeyRadio.com. Take another break. We'll be right back.
Stay tuned. Steve Laffey's Fixing America returns after these commercial messages.
I'm in almost every school bus and classroom. I go to school with your children. We say the Pledge of Allegiance together. You see me around the neighborhood and you tell me that I'm a pretty good kid. Well, I'm 1 out of every 5 children in America, and I'm struggling with hunger. This problem is closer than you think. My teacher tells me we can grow up to be whatever we want. I want to grow up to be someone who doesn't go to bed hungry.
There's enough food in this country to feed everybody.
Please visit feedingamerica.org today and find your local food bank for ways to help. Every dollar you donate helps provide 8 meals for kids like me, quietly struggling with hunger.
Together, we are Feeding America. Brought to you by Feeding America and the Ad Council.
Students, when I call the reason for your absences throughout the years, please exit the auditorium without your high school diploma. Too tired, family trip, sick day, starting the holidays early.
Starting in the 6th grade, students who miss 18 days or more of school in a year for any reason will fall behind and risk not graduating high school. How many days of school has your child missed this year? Absences add up. Keep track at boostattendance.org. Brought to you by the U.S. Army and the Ad Council.
The call to serve. It has no sound, yet I have heard it in the whispered retelling of honorable sacrifices made by those who have served before me. The call to serve has no form, yet I have clearly seen it. In the eyes of men and women infinitely more courageous and more driven than most. The call to serve has no weight, yet I have held it in my hands. I will commit to carry it close to my heart until my country is safe and the anguish of those less fortunate has been soothed. The call to serve is at once invisible and always present. And for those who choose to answer the call, for their country, for their fellow man, for themselves, it is the most powerful force on earth. America's Navy, a global force for good.
And now, back to the Fixing America radio program with your host, Steve Laffey.
China says that last year it became the world's largest trading nation, taking that title away from the United States. Beijing called it a landmark milestone that its annual trade in goods topped $4 trillion for the first time. That number comes from adding exports, which rose 7.9%, and imports, which are up 7.3%. The full-year figure for the US is not yet available, but it was $3.5 trillion for the first 11 months of the year.
Steve Laffey here. Steve Laffey's Fixing America, and there we are again. China, communist China, just became the world's biggest trader. Their numbers are probably not totally accurate. We don't have our 12th-month numbers in. This is totally unacceptable. We're responsible. What are they doing with the money? This is the connection has to be made. The connection has to be made because if they were just America with a constitution, if there was in the 1980s, it was Japan making a comeback, which they were in the 80s, I guess. All right. But look at the moves they've made in the last couple of weeks. We've done shows on this. Air Defense Identification Zone. Surprise. They set up an air defense, if you hadn't listened before, Air Defense Identification Zone, meaning that if you take a look at the map going out toward Japan, they've just said no one can come into this area by plane without informing us. So even a passenger plane on Delta Airlines that takes off from Detroit heading to Beijing, they got to call in. Well, Japan called it totally unacceptable. China was just basically involved in testing the weakness of America and America's allies. They just want to see what would happen. They didn't really do it. They didn't set up their planes and knock people out of the sky. Japan says absolutely we're not going to do it. Not going to do it at all. The heck with you. They expect America to say the whole thing. We're not informing you. America says, well, for our planes, we'll send some fighter jets up there to fly through. We won't inform you. But for passenger planes, commercial planes, we will. Dud. What do they do next? This is, by the way, this is what they're doing with the money. It wouldn't be as important if there was no money involved. But we give them a 40% discount to do this to us. Next article. They wait 2 weeks. They don't wait 3 years. Beijing moves to bolster China sea claim. Now, if you have a ship in the area, you've got to inform them. A fishing vessel. What's our response? I still don't know. Barack Obama, by the way, promised 1 million new jobs, manufacturing jobs. No plan to do so. This is for the second term. So far, in 11 months, he's got 77,000. He's got to average $25,000 per month to do that over 4 years, which is, by the way, abysmal number anyway. Not even close. No plan to do that, because where they get their money is effectively from China, through American corporations, into campaign donations and lobbyists to make sure that we keep giving the store away. At the beginning, we were talking about income inequality. The circle comes around. That's where it's coming from. Visit, by the way, don't take a vacation to Hawaii for 2 weeks like the president does every single year, or Martha's Vineyard in the summertime. Go to Youngstown, Ohio. Go to one of these places that just drive through Detroit, which has other reasons for its demise. All of them do, by the way. But one of the reasons is if you drive through look at the vacant buildings and see what's happening. But it gets worse. Just Monday, finally, article came out, not in the major newspapers. Nothing wrong with the Washington Free Beacon. But they're the only ones reporting that I could find. Congress voices concerns about Chinese hypersonic missile test. So here's what you got to get about foreign policy. There can always be surprises. Pearl Harbor, we decided to move our ships from San Diego. That was our way to show strength. America didn't realize that we woke up in 41 and Japan had better military capabilities in the Pacific than America. Americans didn't realize that. I'm sure the generals did. I'm sure the president did. We just did nothing about it. Why? War-weary, Great Depression, all this stuff that was taxing on America. We allowed our grip to slip on being the world superpower. And we took it on the chin. And people died. And we had a world war. They thought we were weak. China's doing the same thing today. The same thing is happening. Their hate for, by the way, it's China and Japan. Their hate for each other is huge. But this hypersonic missile test, just to tell you what it is, they can take a missile up very, very high and send it down 5-10 times faster so that our air defense systems, Star Wars systems, that we do have, somewhat, not the way we should. It's a game changer because we can't shoot this one down. Now, they haven't put one up there with a missile on it, I don't think. They just tested it over communist China land in the air. But you've got, all right, so there's 535 congressmen. There's 4 that in this article that are worried. There's 4 people left. I'll tell you who they are. Buck McCohen, Republican from California. Randy Forbes, Republican from Virginia. Mike Rogers, Republican from Alabama. They're concerned. And John Cornyn has expressed concern about China's high-technology military advance. We pretty much know they stole this technology from America, even though we haven't perfected it. That's what they do. So this is a relationship that we give them all the money so that for a short period of time we can live high on the hog with cheap consumer goods. Meanwhile, hollowing out our manufacturing concern where we don't even have a manufacturing plant. If someone shot down or took down one of our bridges, we couldn't repair it. The stuff comes from China. So we're not prepared now. And it's not about the absolute amount of money. It's about not being prepared and concerned and letting people know and taking their economy down by what we can do with it because they depend on us so much. That's what we need to do. Stop trading with them, put tariffs on their goods. Find a way for China, for communist China, to not be so strong so they start doing what they normally do throughout history, concentrating inward on the riots that they're going to have in their country where their people want to live free. They don't. 450 people control their country. But this is totally out of control. And this surprise announcement, which I should do a whole show on, about hypersonic missile test. It is about the hypersonic missile test. It is always about Sputnik. Let's take a look let's go right now to Iran, for example. Think of the negotiations that are going on with Iran today, where we're today about to release $7 billion of money, at least, for Iran to use. And what are the negotiations about? Let's go back a month and just see what are these people saying about it. Here's Kerry about a month ago talking about his view of negotiating with Iran. I bring this up because there can be a surprise with Iran. There's no doubt our intelligence is imperfect. Think weapons of mass destruction in Iraq, or lack thereof, or where they went, or whatever. So we don't have perfect intelligence, yet we operate as if we're dealing with the family next door that you know and trust about borrowing a lawnmower. But that's not who we're dealing with communist China, Iran, Venezuela, Russia, North Korea, Syria. Here we go.
We're asking you to give our negotiators and our experts the time and the space to do their jobs. And that includes asking you, while we negotiate, that you hold off imposing new sanctions. Now, I'm not saying never. I just told you a few minutes ago, if this doesn't work, we're coming back and asking you for more. I'm just saying not right now. Let me be very clear. This is a very delicate diplomatic moment.
We understand that he wants more time, but there was no need to take the sanctions off at all. They were coming to the table. We've destroyed their economy. And yet Senator Kerry and President Obama and Vice President Biden, they all might be very nice people. They are dead wrong about who they're dealing with. And it's pretty obvious. And it's not obvious just from like me sitting here. It's obvious from what the Iranians say themselves. Before I even tell you what they said today and what they're tweeting out now, let's play President Obama on the same subject. This is about a month ago.
My preference is for peace and diplomacy, and this is one of the reasons why I've sent a message to Congress that now is not the time for us to impose new sanctions. Now is the time for us to allow the diplomats and technical experts to do their work. We will be able to monitor and verify whether or not the interim agreement is being followed through on, and if it is not, we'll be in a strong position to respond. If Iran is willing to walk through the door of opportunity that's presented to them, then I have no doubt that it can open up extraordinary opportunities for Iran and their people. If they fail to walk through this door of opportunity, then we are in a position to reverse any interim agreement and put in place additional pressure to make sure that Iran does not obtain a nuclear weapon.
I guess you could try to. It's going to be hard. But just recently, and I was just watching this, I was working on it today, I just saw a tweet from the Rouhani over in Iran. He tweets, "Our relationship with the world is based upon Iranian national interest and Geneva Agreement," speaking about the agreement with President Obama, "world powers surrender to the Iranian national will." He calls it a surrender by the West. This is the guy who runs the country. And then you think about, they are responsible for so much terror around the world. We've been through a show on Iran about this. We know what they're doing over right now in Fallujah, how they're backing the Fallujah situation. Must be terrible for U.S. soldiers who serve there. Must be one of the worst things to see in Fallujah today. I'm sorry. Fight over there. Friends die over there. And because we're a war-weary thing, and we can blame George Bush for that, American power needs to be projected concisely, accurately, at the right people with overwhelming military dominance, so people don't mistake what we are doing, and only used when it really has to be used. Not long, drawn-out, people coming back with one leg year after year. It's a disgrace what's happening. But now, that's the major point. We are having that trouble. So from China to Iran, the surprise could come out of Iran where they don't need us anymore. Well, we've got to go. It's Newsday Tuesday. I'm running out of time. Laffey Radio. Thanks for tuning in. We'll be back with another hard-hitting show tomorrow on one topic. So we do the rest of the week. We'll try to solve some problems or celebrate a life of someone. But really, we try to solve problems here. Anyway, Steve Laffey tuning out. Tune in. Follow us on Facebook, Laffey Radio. Pass these things around and talk to your friends about what we're doing here. God bless. We'll talk to you tomorrow.
You've been listening to Steve Laffey's Fixing America radio program on the Laffey Radio Network. Fixing America is broadcast Monday through Friday afternoons at 3 p.m. right here at www.laffeyradio.com. Any rebroadcast, retransmission, or account of this broadcast without the express written consent of Laffey Network, LLC is prohibited.